Good afternoon. Today we're going to look at identifying the components of a simple and complete sentence. And we're also going to be looking at composing compound sentences using conjunctions and commas. These are lessons that are going to help us make sure that we are writing thoughtful, complete, and more complex sentences in our state research report. We're going to do a little bit of a review today. It's kind of a two-part lesson. So we're going to review what is included in a complete, simple sentence. But then also learning a little bit of how we can add words like conjunctions to make words or to make sentences a little bit more complex and a little bit longer. So we're going to take a look here at some practice. What does a sentence need? I want you to think about that. Well, we want to make sure that a sentence we know needs to have capital letters to start. We know it also needs to have punctuation at the end. Some other things that it must have are subjects. Okay, a subject can also be known as a noun, person, place, or thing. It also needs to have a verb, okay, or an action word. So I have a few simple sentences here that we're going to take a look at together and see if we can identify the subject and the verb. And what I'll do is I'll highlight them as we go through them so that you can see where they are typically located in the sentences, but also seeing if you can identify these since it's been a while. All right, so number one, bull sharks will swallow almost anything. My first question is, who or what is in the sentence? My answer to that would be bull sharks. So what I would need to do is I will just highlight that. Oops, I will highlight that in orange. Let's see if it'll let me do this. Bull sharks, there we go. Sorry about that. Perfect. And what will bull sharks do? They will swallow. So I'm going to highlight that in yellow. So I've got my subject in orange and my verb or action in yellow. Let's look at number two. The hippo defends its territory and its family with a huge mouth and long tusk. Well, who or what is doing that? The hippo. So what we would need to do is we're going to underline that in orange. Then I might ask myself, what is the hippo doing? What's that action? The hippo defends. So I would highlight that in yellow. Number three says, the huge animal spends most of its time in rivers and lakes. Who or what? Where's our subject? We have just simply our animal. We do have that word huge in front of that. That word would be an adjective. It describes the look of the subject. We're not looking for adjectives today. And we want to think about, what does this animal do? What is the action? Oh, spends. Okay, so that's questions that you can ask. Lastly, it says the 13 spines on its back inject the deadliest venom of any fish. This is a little bit challenging. We can think about who or what is doing the action. What I'm noticing, spines. Spines is going to be our subject. And what do the spines do? If you answered inject, you are correct. Okay. So it is important to note that every sentence must have a subject and a verb. Okay. But now, since we've covered the basics, and this was probably a review, we need to make sure that we think about how we can extend these sentences and what words we use to do that. So I want you to notice something. I have an invitation for you to notice. I'm going to read this sentence aloud, and I want you to think about some things that stick out to you. This is what we use as called a mentor sentence, and this mentor sentence is used by an author that we can learn a lot from. When we notice authors' sentences, we can then try out some of those strategies in our own writing. I was a curious child, and my eyes studied everything. I want you to take a moment, maybe pause the video, and see if you can identify at least 3 things in this sentence that you notice. Okay. I notice that this sentence starts off with a capital letter and it ends with a period. Something I noticed is that this sentence has a comma. And after the comma, I have the word and. And I'm noticing that here, I was a curious child and my eyes studied everything. I'm noticing that I'm having a couple subjects and a couple actions in this one sentence. I notice I have child here as my subject. Okay, and was would be our verb here. But then I also have eyes, and my eyes did what? My eyes studied everything. So even if I took this comma and out, I could have 2 separate sentences. But I noticed that these are combined with this word and. And this was a sentence by Jen Bryant from Six Dots, a story of a young Louis Braille. All right, so now I'm going to show you another sentence paired up against this one. We're going to think about I use a comma and a conjunction to join 2 sentences. That is going to be our focus phrase. That is what we're thinking about and what we might have noticed when we saw this sentence. Thinking about to compare and contrast, I have our first sentence we just looked at, and now I'm going to take a look at the second sentence, and we can kind of think about what's alike and what's different. And then I'm going to show you something that might be helpful as you are able to identify some conjunctions in our sentences. So I was a curious child and my eyes studied everything. And then I have a second mentor sentence. I was an active child and my body never stopped moving. I want you to think about how are they alike and how are they different. So why don't you pause the video and take a moment to jot down some of your ideas. Ways that they're alike is, again, they have capital letters and they have punctuation at the end. I notice they both start with I was. I also notice that they have a comma and an and on either side. I also know this one says I was an active child and my body never stopped moving. That if I took out this and, this could be a sentence on its own, and this other one on the right of my and could be a sentence on its own. Okay. Ways that they might be different. They've used different adjectives to describe their word here, or I'm sorry, to describe their subject. Okay. One says curious child and one says active child. And then instead of my eyes, this one has my body. Okay. I noticed that this has an an instead of an a. And I can figure out why, because when we use different articles, we want to make sure that if we have if this next one starts with a vowel, we have to have an an. This one starts with a consonant, so it is left a. So I want you to notice that things that we could even point out in thinking more deeply about these sentences. Lastly, what I want to point out is that these sentences have a comma and this and is called a conjunction, okay? I'm going to show you a list of conjunctions, and that is ways to combine sentences to make compound sentences. And this is something you're going to get to practice with today. So we've got conjunctions, and a way to remember that is by using this phrase, this word called fanboys. And this is a way to help you remember what exactly these stand for. So the word for is a conjunction, and as we just mentioned, nor, but, or, yet, and so. So I'm just going to read through these, and this is a reference for you as you do your work tonight. You're going to get some practice about when you might use some of these coordinating conjunctions, because they won't always make sense. You have to kind of pick and choose which ones you're going to use, but they're great ways to combine sentences to form compound sentences. So here's for number one. So I go to the library, for I love to read. Anna likes to read and write. Okay. The virus cannot live in immunized individuals nor in nature. So notice this one's a little bit of comparing, contrasting. She objected at first, but finally submitted. You're going to have a little brother or sister. The weather was hot, yet bright and sunny. I know you must be tired, so I will let you rest. Notice that we do need these commas for most of these sentences in order to combine them. So the comma goes, so you have one part of the sentence, a comma, and then the second part of the sentence to make your compound sentences. So what you're going to do is you're going to take a look at, you're going to see an assignment on Seesaw where you're going to get a chance to practice using filling in the blank using your Fanboys poster, which was right over here. You will get a link to this or a copy of this on Seesaw, and for you to reference and see which word might make the most sense to make these compound sentences. So what we're going to do is, this is the first part of your lesson. Later on this week, you will take a look at how to use these compound sentences in your first location paragraph of your state report. So we're going to take a look, and we're going to be hearing those words like conjunctions, compound sentences, and commas tomorrow as well. All right, off you go.